cousins, aunts and uncles, today's ceremony. But most importantly, I want to welcome you fifth graders seated here in the front. This is a very special day for you, and the words that I have prepared today are directed to you. Today is meant to be a celebration of all of the wonderful experiences you've had, all of your accomplishments over your time in the elementary school. You may remember that over the past few weeks, we've been coming into your classroom, and we've been asking for feedback, for some reflections about the experience that you had. And I promised that I would share a little bit of what you had written during this ceremony. Looking back at some of the best memories that you had, many of you mentioned a wide variety of experiences. You mentioned games. You mentioned first grade being the best experience. You mentioned third grade. You mentioned the preschool. You mentioned second grade. You even mentioned climbing up on the playground for the first time on your own in preschool as being a big accomplishment and a memorable event. You mentioned Ashlon. You mentioned Community Day, presentations, running in the rain, the last day of school when everybody waves goodbye to the buses, the teacher's cookies. You mentioned fourth grade. You mentioned fifth grade, the musical, the technology fair, sports week, different experiences with soccer, basketball, hockey. You mentioned your teachers. A couple even mentioned a hair salon in first grade as being the best experience. A number of different activities, including the oratoria. But the most common thing that you mentioned, the common thread across all of your best experiences, is that they all involved friends. They all involved the people that you're sitting with in the front row. So when I looked at your responses to the question, what are 3 words that describe your strengths as a generation? I wasn't surprised when I saw what you identified as your strengths. Up here you can see the word united and friendship are the largest. Those are the words that most of you mentioned. Those are the most common words that you mentioned as strengths in this generation. You also mentioned funny and fun, creative, teamwork, but all of it had to do with the strong bond that you have. And I hope that you can continue to maintain that bond and grow even stronger as a generation as you move through the middle school and the high school. And actually, when I asked you the question about what do you want to be your legacy at Lincoln School, what do you want to be remembered for, most of you mentioned the same thing. A generation that was united, that was strong, and that works together. I also asked you, who would you want to give thanks to for your experience, all your successes in the elementary school? Of course, some of you mentioned your friends. You mentioned guidance counselors helping you through difficult times. You mentioned your teachers for always encouraging you. You mentioned administrators, and you mentioned God. But the one we heard the most is you mentioned mom, you mentioned dad, and you mentioned your family. And this is good to hear, because it is well known, it is well documented that one of the most important pieces to your success at school is the connection and the support that you have at home. So I would like to ask all of the fifth graders, please stand up. Turn around, find mom, dad, relatives. You go ahead, fifth graders, give them a round of applause for everything they've done for you. Okay, you can be seated. And finally, the question that I know troubled you the most, but I was really able to see how creative you really are. You mentioned creativity being a strength. I asked you the magic wand question. If you had a magic wand and you could change anything about your experience here in the elementary, Any programs, buildings, whatever it is, experiences, what would you change? Some of you mentioned changing things that happened, mistakes made, bad decisions, going back and changing them. You mentioned more green spaces, more lunchtime, longer recesses, a soccer stadium, getting rid of uniforms, getting rid of tests, gumball machines in the school, more flowers and plants, bringing famous athletes to coach the sports teams, elevators, even a roller coaster was mentioned, more comfortable classroom chairs, swimming pool, candy in the cafeteria, no grades, more sports days, more half days, allowing students to bring their pets to school every day. New subject areas, teaching more leadership skills to students was also mentioned. Getting rid of lines. More books on specific topics in the library. Well, Mrs. Montero, Ms. Van Cleek, and I are going to take time to read over some of your suggestions because your feedback is very important to us. But obviously, some of the more lofty goals, like the roller coaster and the soccer stadium, might take a little bit more time for us to change. I want to talk now about looking forward. What's to come, middle school, high school, and beyond. Both you, your families, your teachers have worked very hard to get you where you are today. And I have a few last words of advice for you as you move on into the middle school. The first thing I want to say is take advantage of everything that the school has to offer. I think the phrase in Spanish is sacar el jugo. Get everything out of it that you can. The arts, the music, the athletics, the technology, the IB courses, special programs like the Model United Nations. Take advantage of all the service learning opportunities that you're going to have in this school. There are opportunities for you to participate and develop your leadership skills in serving. And I think Luciana said it best in the oratorio, and I asked permission to use her quote today. Manos que dan siempre estarán llenos. My second piece of advice is trust your heart, use your head, and make your own decisions. You will face a lot of tough choices in the future. And believe me, your parents are very well aware of the challenges and the decisions that you're going to have to be making. It's actually one of the reasons why the guidance counselors have been working with you with the Botkin program. If you think something isn't right using your head, if you feel something isn't right using your heart, it probably isn't. Don't let others influence you in making decisions just because someone else, or as they say, everybody else is doing it, doesn't make it the right thing to do. We trust and we believe in you that you're going to be able to make the right decisions as you move through middle school and high school. My third piece of advice for you is identify and follow your passions. It is very evident to all of us here that you are a very talented group. The arts, soccer, technology, dance, a variety of areas. Each one of you brings something unique to the school, something that makes Lincoln School excellent. As you move on into middle school and high school, it is important that you find something that you're passionate about, something that motivates and drives you, and stick with it. My final piece of advice for you, and I know in conversations I've had with you, you guys are very excited for the freedom and the independence that you're going to be having in the middle school. But I want to remind you, is talk to and listen to your parents. Those people you just applauded, the people sitting behind you, have been there for you over all these years. And they are your greatest resource. And even if you make a mistake, you're worried about getting in trouble, they are always going to be there to support and guide you. Even those topics that might be a little bit embarrassing to talk about with parents when it comes to friendship and the things that happen in middle and high school. Believe it or not, they were all middle schoolers once too. Their advice can be the best. And there's no one else in this world that wants to see you be successful, that wants to see you be happy more than your parents do. I want to wish you the best and let you know how much we're looking forward to seeing you grow at Lincoln School. The journey's not over yet. We're anxious to see you thrive, and we're anxious to see you become the models of Lincoln School's purpose statement. Excellence through innovation, integrity, and leadership. I wish you the best. Thank you.